Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Antichrist Analysed, and we're continuing in our series. The one description we're going to look at today is the one from Daniel chapter 11 verse 21, in which this person is called the Despicable Person. The translation that I've seen the most is contemptible person. So that will be the first thing to keep in mind. What kind of person is it describing here? Alright, there is a long description of this person in Daniel chapter 11, which goes from verse 21 all the way down to 26 or 27. Now, I'm not going to read that just to save time, but I would recommend that you read it. Now, there are two things I want to say. One is you may want to refer to my Little Horn videos, which you can find them on the list there, because they do look at the sequence of events that Daniel is predicting, and especially the chronology of the empires that came and went during or after his lifetime, rather. So we need to bear that history in mind. Then the second thing we need to say is that if the rest of Daniel from chapter 7 onwards is describing the history that came after the Babylonian Empire, then presumably it would be fair to say that Daniel 11 is the same history, because we're not reading Daniel as if from 7 to chapter 12 that it's all one continuous chronology. It's actually more of a cycling kind of way of revealing prophecy. Chapter 7 gives us a foundation, and back in chapter 2 as well, actually. Then chapter 8 gives us a little bit more of a description of the same events. Chapter 9 gives us another angle. So it would be very clear to me that chapter 11 is given the same details about Daniel 7 and Daniel 8. So that's what I want to say straight away, is that I believe this is not referring to a future Antichrist, because it would deny Daniel's immediate history, and also it demands that you place this long gap into the text. And also, if it is the Antichrist in chapter 11, at what point do you say the king of the north, the king of the south was maybe the Romans or and one of the past empires? At what point does the gap come in by the time you get to verse 21? So that's something else to consider. However, from a historical point of view, who would this person be? Well, I'm actually going to share the screen with you, and I know this is a large section of scripture to look at, but I just want you to focus in on the bits that are in colour. We see there that the ram is highlighted, we see that the goat is highlighted, and then at the end we see in red that another horn, it started off small, but then it grew and it came towards the beautiful land. I want you to focus on those sequence of events, because we know from Daniel chapter 8 that the ram was Persia, the goat was Greece, and then if we go by Daniel 2, that sequence of events, and Daniel 7, the next empire that would come up from that is Rome, and Rome did come into the beautiful land, which is basically referring to Jerusalem, the area in Palestine where the Romans conquered. Now, if we go to chapter 11 of Daniel, it would make perfect sense to me that if that's the chronology we have in chapter 8, that the same chronology would be presented in Daniel chapter 11. Now, you'll notice also in verse 16 of this chapter that the beautiful land there is mentioned again. It begins with, the invader will do as he pleases. So it makes sense to me that from verse 16 onwards, this is talking about the Roman Empire, which means the previous verses about the king of the south and the king of the north is about Greece, especially when Greece was divided into four states, because after Alexander the Great, his generals, four of them, split the Greek Empire into four sections. So that's what that is referring to. So we are dealing with the Roman Empire because we see that same sequence of events from Daniel 8, and you compare it with Daniel 11. So that would mean that the two people mentioned in verses 20 and 21 would have to come from within the Roman Empire. So very quickly, let's go through this. Who is his successor. He will send out a tax collection to maintain the royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. Well, history tells us that this person here is Caesar Augustus, and it matches the biblical story because, in Luke, in Matthew and Luke, the census was taken to count all the people in Jerusalem at that time when Jesus was born, and that's what that history is referring to. Another interesting fact is that Caesar Augustus died of old age, even though the TV series I Claudius shows that he was poisoned by his wife. But he did not die in battle, just as Daniel says. And so that leads us to the person we're investigating. Who is this despicable person? It says that he will be succeeded by someone, and we know that Augustus was succeeded by Tiberius Caesar, who is also mentioned in the gospel narratives. In fact, Tiberius was ruling when Jesus was born, and it would make sense to call him a despicable person because he basically was a rapist, a pedophile. He was really a horrible, disgusting human being, and he did a lot of horrible, evil things. And this description in Daniel 11 would be fitting to that historical person. And so, to answer the question in short, no, this despicable person, is not the Antichrist. This person is actually Tiberius Caesar, someone from history rather than an Antichrist who is supposedly going to be predicted in the future.